The Spotlight, shining a light on podcasts and videos that have caught our attention.
Hi, and welcome to The Spotlight. My name is Jen Spiker, and today I'll be highlighting another video from Creation Ministries International. The Ice Age is a topic that often creates more questions than answers. Secular scientists have major trouble modelling how even one ice age could start in the real world, never mind multiple ice ages. Over the next few episodes of The Spotlight, geologist Dr. Tas Walker will explain the mysteries of the Ice Age through the lens of the Bible.
The Spotlight with Jen Spiker.
Tas, you are a geologist with CMI. You've studied Ice Age landforms across the world, and you say the Bible contains the only credible answer to the mystery of the Ice Age through the form of Noah's flood. Now, first of all, what's the mystery of the Ice Age?
Well, the mystery of the Ice Age is how the Ice Age ever came about. And when you think about it, we are actually living in an Ice Age now. Some 10% of the Earth's surface is covered in ice, in the glaciers, up in the mountains, and across, flat landforms and large islands like Greenland. So there's ice there now, and people are living with it. 10%. Now the mystery is that in the past there was a much larger area of the Earth that was covered in ice. So we're now in an Ice Age now, but much larger in the past, and that's what's really called the Ice Age. That's what they're referring to. They call it the Quaternary Ice Age. And it was discovered by a guy called Louis Agassiz, and he did a lot of research and investigation and documentation of evidence for this Ice Age. Because when you've got ice on the continents and when you've got ice in the mountains, these glaciers, as they move, they erode and carve the land, and they carve the rocks. And so you find very, very distinctive evidence. For example, you find on rocks, you find scratches, which indicates that ice was there in the past. Doesn't always mean that, but that's one of the characteristic evidences. Also, you find distinctive valleys. They're a round U-shaped shape for these valleys, for the glaciers. Also, you find the ice will carry down rocks on it, big boulders, and it carries it long distances. And then when the ice melts, it drops them on the land. And so these are called erratic boulders. And they have got boulders which don't belong where they're sitting. So that's another evidence. And the ice, what happens is the glaciers actually carve out the landforms and make depressions. And after the ice is melted, these are left full of water, and they make lakes, and they're called kettle lakes. And so there's the ice pushes up rock and breaks up rock, and it forms this broken rock, which is called tillite. And so the glaciers have got these huge heaps of broken rock in front of them, which is called a moraine, and also at the side of them. And so you got the lateral moraines, you've got the terminal moraines. And so based on this, Louis Agassiz was able to say, look, it looks like the world was covered with a lot more ice in the past. So he did his presentation, and he made his presentation to these scientists. And guess what? They didn't believe him. They didn't think it was possible. They were not wanting to listen to what he had to say.
It sounds like quite a lot of evidence. And how long ago was this that he suggested it, and when did it get accepted that there was an Ice Age in the past?
Well, he made a big presentation in the 1830s, so it's sort of nearly 200 years ago that he did that. And but the reason why, well, a lot of scientists are averse to new ideas, who would believe it, and it takes quite a bit of time for these things to be picked up and accepted. But the big issue was, well, what caused the Ice Age? Why would there be more ice in the past? And if they produced more ice in the past, why has it melted back? What stopped it? So that was the big questions that they had about the Ice Age, and their reluctance to believe what was presented to them as scientists by Louis Agassiz.
First of all, what you're saying is that we're in an Ice Age now, or we're coming out of an Ice Age, I guess you'd say. So 10% of the Earth is covered with ice. But in the past, more of the Earth has been covered with ice. And the mystery is, how did that more of the Earth get covered with ice? Now, first of all, can I ask how much more of the Earth has been covered with ice in the past? Because there's this popular idea, or when we think about the Ice Age, a lot of times we'll get in our heads that, the Earth covered with ice. It's the Ice Age. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. Is that right?
Well, the Ice Age we're talking about, the one that Louis Agassiz documented,
Yep.
the whole Earth was not covered with ice, but it covered parts of England, it covered parts of Asia, it covered parts of Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, more ice in New Zealand, and in North America, parts of Canada, right down into the US. Even in the Niagara Falls, ice came down to the Niagara Falls area and below that. So that was covered a large area, and it extended out and then it melted back. So that's the mystery as to what was it, what were the conditions that caused it. And the natural go-to sort of thinking was, well, it must have been colder in the past. There must have been an extensive cold period on the Earth which caused the ice to grow.
Yep.
And so that's the go-to. But in actual fact, although it sounds logical, that doesn't really cover it, doesn't do it. And that's part of the mystery. The unanswered questions, the problems with the solutions that it put up, that's part of the mystery that scientists have wrestled with. And it's also caused them alarm thinking about, if the Ice Age affected the climate that way, what's it doing to our climate today? And they're having trouble understanding the climate today.
So, Tas, we're saying that you're claiming that the Bible has the answer to this problem. But first of all, can I ask, surely this problem's been around for 200 years. How did the ice get here to start with? And how did it advance so much on the Earth? Surely secular scientists have looked into this and come up with some ideas. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. Although the puzzles have not been solved. So as I mentioned, the go-to idea is that the Earth must have been colder in the past. And so they've wrestled with ways of getting the Earth significant colder temperatures on the Earth in the past. So maybe there was a meteorite impact. That's one idea. Maybe there was a supervolcano. You can just sort of speculate and brainstorm on these things. Maybe there was a supervolcano. Maybe the sun was cooler in the past. That's another idea. Or maybe something happened with the moon to actually change the way the temperature came on the Earth. And another idea was, well, maybe there was higher CO2 in the past. So there's all these speculations that go on as to what could possibly cause it. But the problem is that really the basic assumption that if you're going to get an ice age, you need to cool the Earth, a drastic cooling that covers the whole of the Earth. That's not really going to solve it. And I'll explain why and how the Bible actually solves that problem. Okay. But they have come up with a very attractive model, which is widely accepted now for the Ice Age.
And so I think I heard of this while studying at university. There was something they talked about, the Milankovitch cycles, and they said that explains not only the large, the major glacial periods, but also these smaller interglacial and glacial periods as well. So what is that the theory you're going to talk about?
Exactly right. So it was in the 1920s and in the 1930s, there was a Serbian geophysicist called Milankovitch who came up with this theory. It's a very sophisticated, elaborate, all sorts of bells and whistles on this theory that explains it, and people have been very attracted to this theory. And so his idea is that it's changes in the orbital parameters of the Earth which are the driving force behind the ice ages. So the orbital parameters are basically the shape of the orbit, the eccentricity of the orbit, so whether the orbit is round or whether it's more oblong. So that's one of the ideas, and that has a cycle that comes back every 100,000 years, and that's attractive to those people who believe the Earth is very, very old.
It seems to make sense. If the Earth is further away from the sun, then it should be colder, right?
Well, you'd expect it to be colder, but there's a caveat on that. I'll explain later. Okay. But the other thing is that the angle of inclination of the Earth's axis, that changes. And so with higher inclination than we have today, it would affect the temperature on the Earth. And so that's got a cyclic time. They calculated it out. It seems to be something like 40,000 years or something like that. And then, a spinning top, when you have a spinning top and it's going around like this, and as it spins, the angle of the top moves around, it precesses. Yeah. And so the inclination of the axis precesses something every 20,000, 25,000 years or something like that. So this very elaborate theory, it's sort of very attractive to people, and there's so much research that can be done on it, and simulations, computer models and that. And so that's the basic go-to model as to how ice ages occurred in the past. So it produces a cooling, and you've got the recycling of cycles over and over again, producing this ice age, which is very attractive to those who believe in an old Earth, that it's existed for eons of time.
I mean, it seems to make sense. You're going to have, if you're tilted further away, if the northern hemisphere is tilted further away, if you've got a more eccentric orbit, then surely you're going to develop more ice in those areas that are colder. Does it work?
Yes, you would expect that, excepting that when they do the calculations, the Milankovitch cycle does not produce enough cooling. It doesn't produce enough temperature variation.
Okay. That's an issue.
That is an issue. Exactly right. And so it's a very attractive theory. It's a great, great model, but it doesn't really work. So if you really like the model, you know what happens, what people do next.
What do they do
They invent a secondary hypothesis. They add something onto it to try to make it work. So rather than saying the model doesn't work, they add something to it. And so the secondary hypothesis is that the small changes produced by the Milankovitch cycles is amplified by carbon dioxide. The way carbon dioxide is absorbing sunlight, and the way it's absorbed into the oceans and that. So the carbon dioxide produces an amplification. That's called positive feedback. So we all know what positive feedback is like. We've experienced it, in a room where there's a public address system, and it gets positive feedback. It goes, just goes out of control.
Louder and louder.
It deafens everybody. Yep. And so that's positive feedback. It's essentially an unstable system. So this model of the Earth's climate, it's actually produces an unstable system, and that's partly why climate scientists are scared to death. That a small change in the Earth's temperature is going to cause the whole of the climate of the Earth to fall off a cliff. And you've heard of the idea that we're facing an existential crisis, that we've only got so many years left, and these sorts of things. Of course, it's all tied into this model of the Milankovitch cycle and the unstable feedback system to try to make the Milankovitch cycle work.
This is The Spotlight, and we've been hearing Dr. Tas Walker in the first part of a long-form interview produced by Creation Ministries International, exploring the mysteries of the Ice Age. As Tas points out, the Bible has the answers to the questions scientists have about the Ice Age. I'm Jen Spiker, and next time on The Spotlight, we'll hear more of this conversation with Dr. Tas Walker, including why we needn't be alarmed about climate change. If you can't wait and want to watch the interview in full, you can do that right now in the Free Vision app. Just tap the Watch tab and scroll to the Creation Ministries International channel for this and other fascinating interviews.
For more great podcasts and videos like the one featured today, check out vision.org.au or the Free Vision app.